Hey everyone, Dan Anchetta from Synergy One Lending and Darren Blonsky from Sonoma Wealth Advisors back here today. We're interviewing Dan Voit today from Blentech. He's the CEO there, and we are just wanting to get some information about what's going on with your business and what you're seeing in the economy given this coronavirus.
Sure.
So let's start off with what's the history of your company?
Sure. Well, the company I run has been in Sonoma County since 1987. I took over as general operations leader in about 2013. Been with the company for about 20 years. And a little background on what we do. We engineer, design, manufacture industrial food processing production equipment, automation, engineering, fabrication. That's the type of thing we do.
Nice. So what was the business like kind of pre-COVID-19? What was their business looking like?
Sure. Well, I think the business that we're in is largely pretty stable most of the time, although capital goods can go up and down for sure with demand. But, overall, it seems that people, every day they wake up, they're going to eat. And so, we know that there's a pretty consistent demand and requirement for food production equipment. What we had seen occurring in the years prior to, the global health crisis that's unfolding, as we speak, was a systematic rise and increase in demand for what we would call an integrated system. So maybe 20 years ago, we would sell like one machine to cook, burrito fillings or pie filling or something like that. And maybe it did like 500 gallons of product or something. They're pretty big. But in the last 10 years, it steadily shifted towards building automated systems that were, more like multi-million-dollar orders, systems of machines working together to gain efficiency through automation. And that's how the world was building and changing for us prior to this.
So the idea is that kind of less people involved and more automation and machinery involved?
Yeah, that's been a consistent trend in the food industry. It's it's been ticking along. I mean, some aspects of the food industry are more automated than others. Some of the large scale commodity production of agricultural goods, let's say like tomatoes in the Central Valley, things like that. They really do have very automated processes dialed in, but some other sections are less automated, and the meat industry is often less automated. A lot of manual labor still gets used, and I think there's been a whole lot in the news about the impacts of those operational structures. So it runs the range, but yeah, automation has been a growing trend.
Dan, you've been doing a lot of work. I've been following you with the company with really kind of cutting edge. Can you tell us a little bit more about how you guys are driving that edge? And
sure. Well, yeah. Well, I mean, it's interesting because one of the things that we've always been competing with is you've always got people that want to come in and try to build what you're building, something similar, kind of Me Too products, and they usually try to undercut your prices by manufacturing somewhere else, somewhere in the Midwest, somewhere in Asia, Eastern Europe, something like that. Those types of things happen. So maybe in about about 2015, we started trying to really focus on creating differentiation for our products, and we moved, of course, into bigger system design, but we also really focused on developing cloud technologies. So when we ship a machine, it always has a live connection using Internet of Things, IoT technologies, if you're familiar with that, in order to beam data up to AWS servers and allow us to help evaluate the performance of the plant for them, whether the food's safe, whether their plant is running efficiently, and feeding them reports and analytics about how the system is running. So we started investing in that about 5 years ago. And I would say in the pre-COVID world, people were intrigued but not compelled by that. Normally what we saw was, yeah, they were, okay, yeah, that sounds great. Yeah, I'm interested in that. But what about security? How are you protecting this and that? And they would delay the decision to make the internet connection, believing that the biggest risk to their organization was whether or not security protocols were strong enough to protect them, and not to diminish the role of security. That's very critical. But I'm jumping forward probably to what your question is going to be, but it's very clear that the business perception of risk now incorporates what we're seeing now, and the interest in the remote systems, the remote control, and the cloud technology. It's inverted. So they absolutely want this now, and they want it yesterday. So what was interesting is now compelling.
So are you able to go back and retrofit existing machines to have that upgraded technology, or is it a brand new
Yeah,
build?
many of them we are. It's obviously it's expensive to, more expensive to retrofit anything than to have done it the first time. That's just the nature of things, but it's still actually a good business deal to do that. So yes, it can be retrofitted, and it actually, we can retrofit onto other people's equipment from time to time as well. So even if it's a machine we didn't buy, there's still some cases where we can retrofit controls.
Can you give us some idea of like who your clients are or what industries?
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to violate confidentiality agreements, so I don't want to name
Not.
names, but what I can tell you is, if you're walking up and down the store aisles, you're going to find most of the names in the frozen food section, most of the names in the canned food sections have at least one or several of our machines. So we work in prepared foods, we work in frozen foods, and a chunk of what we did was also used for, was also used for production of foods for school lunches and for restaurants. So a lot of restaurants buy the foods that they sell from a central facility, and then reheat them in the stores, whether it's things like soups or desserts and things like that.
It's kind of interesting that in some ways you're a hidden secret here in Sonoma County, Dan, because to think you have that big of a reach globally, at least through the United States. And I don't think a lot of people know the name. It's not a household name, but they're all eating your food that was cooked by you guys.
That's correct. Yeah, that's correct. And it is global. So we have installations on all 6 inhabited continents. So, and we've placed equipment in such a wide range of applications. It's a pretty neat space. I mean, everywhere you go, people got to eat, right?
Right. And yeah, you guys have gotten best place to work a few years in a row in North Bay, right?
2 years in a row.
3 years in a row.
No,
right?
two.
Mm-hmm. All right. So going for the 3rd year here.
Let's hope so. Yeah, let's hope so. We're doing our best to take care of the health and safety of our employees. So let's hope that our folks
so I see that you're at home right now. Is the plant open? Like what is the current status of?
That's correct. Yeah. So the plant is open. We are an essential business in that, we're supplying service, parts, and support to the food industry. Mm-hmm. Anecdotally, some of our machines are used for producing foods for hospitals and things like that. We switched to having a 24-hour service support. So we have a 24-hour hotline rather than just business hours, which is how things used to be. But what we did is we moved anyone that was more of a knowledge worker, an office worker, they all went to work remotely. And that dropped the density of the people in the shop, by a lot, actually by half. And then of course we put in the social distancing protocols early, before they were required. Have been able to maintain that and continue to do so.
Do you think you'll be able to continue to function this way regardless if they lift the social distancing protocols? Are you planning to continue on functioning this way regardless?
I'm actually finding some interesting advantages to this. One of them is our people are able to focus on things and get their work done in a way that suits them. We had invested internally pretty heavily because we bought into the whole theory of cloud communications, not just in what we sold, but in the way we lived and within our business. So, we invested in a cloud-based PLM, product lifecycle management software system to facilitate communications between our technical teams. It's embedded on the Salesforce platform. It's a program called Propel. But we're able to use systems like that. And we're also a Google apps company where we've got the Google Hangouts integrated for chatting with each other and things like that. So it's very easy for us to stay connected remotely, provided people have a laptop, which everyone does, provided they've got an internet connection, which everyone does. We have found that we have not lost the ability to stay connected in terms of our team. Now our sales pipeline's been affected, but we've focused our team where we can to provide the maximum, support to our industry.
So going forward, kind of after this is done, because eventually this will run its course and we'll get a vaccine or, whatever the solution is.
Yeah.
Right. Something's going to happen. This won't
Sure.
be forever. What do you think business looks like, the business environment for you, or just maybe the business environment in general? What do you think the lasting changes that we'll see will be from this experience?
Yeah, well, I mean, I have to speak to that specifically, the food industry, because that's where I work, right? But it seems to me that food factories were often considering technology upgrades largely for cost reduction as opposed to risk mitigation. So, if you were going to put in, some automated system, a lot of times the math penciled out of, does the automation create savings relative to the manual process you might have employed? But I think folks now are seeing that, the density of people creates a different risk that wasn't really factored into the design models of the factories or even the business models of how they operated their business. And so I expect the velocity for automation to accelerate. The interest in that, and I expect using technologies like the Internet of Things stuff that I talked about, the IoT technology. I believe that it lowers the cost of entry for automation, so that smaller companies. I mean, it's one thing for the top 10 food companies to be able to buy a custom configured automation platform. They have the money and the resources for that, but the real change happens when you bring technology to the mid and small size companies where, a lot of the diverse production occurs. And I mean, Sonoma County businesses definitely fall into that, but it's not just Sonoma County. It's, literally everywhere, right? That's just the nature of the business world.
Right. So that technology should be available to smaller size, kind of maybe startup phase, or people who are doing manual process, mom and pop type operations can find some efficiencies in the automation.
Yeah, and the data that you can collect, using automated systems in production.
It's interesting listening to you. It sounds to me like your organization is really positioned to slingshot through this. Obviously it's going to be difficult for a while as we all recalibrate to the new economic model, but once we get out of this, you're really positioned to be able to capitalize in a really big way to help food service providers.
I sure hope so. That's the bet. That's the bet we made, right? But no, I mean, in truth, the purpose of our company is really to bring capabilities that make food safer, food healthier, more available, more economically accessible. And we've been investing in these technologies because they're the right thing to do for years, and it seems like the market is getting ready for it. During the time that our customers have to adapt to bringing social distancing policies into their operations, and then understand what's happening with the surging and spiking demand. I mean, some food products are spiking, some are not. If you're supporting food service, you're probably having a hard time. If you're supporting certain retail, you might be seeing record sales like you've never seen, but neither of those are likely to be a permanent state. And in either case, both of those classes of companies really aren't thinking, hey, maybe I should buy a new machine. They're really focused on, hey, how do I get day-to-day operations to a sustainable level? So, we have near-term challenges and we have long-term opportunities, but that's the nature of business, right?
Yeah, everyone's trying to fulfill that immediate need right now, right? To try to keep their product on the shelf if it's in high demand, or figure out what to do to fill orders today, and not necessarily thinking about what happens 6 months, 8 months.
Right. I mean, and that'll change, and I don't know when, but when we look back on the history of our company, what we see is that there's always a steady march towards increased automated processes or increased equipment to help produce food. And whenever there's some sort of an economic disruption, what we see is a delay in demand, not a disappearance of it. And so we kind of consider it like a pent up demand. So we see a drop and then a pop surge on the backside. And so really the question is, how long will the drop be? And when will that return come? Not if it will. I don't think anyone thinks that the food industry is going anywhere. It isn't. And that's that.
Yeah,
that's true.
For sure.
So really it's about surviving the delay.
Correct.
I mean, that's the name of the game right now. How do you
Correct.
survive the delay and then get through this thing and spring forward?
Correct.
Excellent. Well, that's good. Dan, thanks for taking time. We don't want to take too much of your time today. Is there any last kind of insights, thoughts you have on what you've learned through this? And
I think that this has taught us all that we really can use these technologies to stay connected in ways that we really didn't think. And there was a lot of resistance to using technology for connection, and it was causing a lot more travel, a lot more expense, a lot more just a lot more overhead. So this is a better future, I think, in front of us. In the long run, as we realize that these technologies that we've created really can make for a more efficient business system, more efficient business communications, faster business communications, better decisions. So I think it's a good thing in the long run will come out of the change. That's not to say that anything that's occurring is in any way good. I don't mean to imply that, but humanity has a way of adapting and getting stronger in the face of challenge. It's a timeless theme, right? And this situation isn't different.
hey, you can't help but wonder whether or not business travel will ever be the same. I don't think it will. I mean, you think of budgets, like why would I pay for these people to jump on planes and hotels and food, eat
And we'll be
out?
doing this
Right.
long enough where this will become normal. This type of communication that we're doing right now, like on the Zoom call, this will be a normal, we'll do it for 60, 90 days and it will just kind of be a new habit. And it'll be like,
Right. I agree. I mean, I think that if you've ever read the book, The Power of Habit by Charles Duhigg, I think they say that these keystone habits had, 30 to 60 days to create them. Well, we've been in shelter in place long enough for this to become a pretty normal habit. And being on an airplane to travel across the country isn't just a waste of money. In a lot of cases, it's also a waste of time and a waste of energy. In the form of fuel and the wear and tear on the airplane and so on and so forth. So inherently it lowers the overall cost of operations for business. And in the long run, that's the foundation upon which efficiencies are built, right?
Yeah,
Absolutely.
So,
hey, Dan, really appreciate your time and your insight.
you bet.
We'll check back with you and get
All
it
right.
at some point in the future.
All right. Super.
Right.
Take care.
Thanks, Dan.
Bye-bye.